would probably be the mid-range. The master rarely seeks treatment, and something somebody said earlier, if they're going to lose a relationship, a marriage, or something like that, they might go for a little bit. One of the things that I see in marital therapy with narcissists, especially a master, the master is really good at manipulating the therapist. They're very good at manipulating the therapist. So that's why I like to look at it through that lens. Sometimes even in this recovery community, we can end up giving them fuel, the narcissist. Susceptible to breakdown in response to a setback or to aging. They could have a breakdown somewhere. For treatment, they need to go to therapy a couple of times a week and probably 2 hours each one of those times, that much intense recovery for years. So this is a personality disorder. Limited motivation for treatment for the mid-range. And they might go into treatment if somebody threatened their support, like money. Like, we're not going to take care of you anymore unless you go to treatment. That might motivate them to go. But even in treatment, if they didn't really want to go, which most don't, they're going to go through the motions. And the lesser, if there's some type of major crisis or something related to a partner, they may go. So I put this here because one of the things that you could do when you're assessing them is assessing them. There's research that shows that you can just come right out and ask them, are you a narcissist? Because especially if it's a master, they pride themselves in being set apart and being different and unique. And so if you say, are you a narcissist? Sometimes they'll say, yeah, like that guy I said, and he's probably, nothing about, yeah, I'm probably a narcissist, yeah. And I have no problem with it. And then there's a narcissist personality inventory that asks a lot of questions. The only thing with that is that this is self-report, and this is the narcissist taking the questionnaire. I've talked about some of this, so I'm gonna go skip through it. Parental narcissist, severe abuse, neglect, unrealistic standards, conditional. This is how a parent would look. Conditional love. So when I said the parent is doing all these things for the child, it's conditional, and the child knows it's conditional. And then the parent is modeling narcissism, and so they may have one that becomes a narcissist. And then there's a lot of enmeshment there. This is the PAT, and this is where we really try to get the abused person to see. I showed you all that abuse cycle before. A narcissist will they'll target somebody, and then they'll be nice. I call, they're going to this seductive mode, and they're very, very good at it. And then there's a devaluation period, the stranger zone. I call it the nice mean cycle. They get hot, they're hot, and they're cold. They're hot, and they're cold, and they're hot, and they're cold. And they're detached, and they're distant. The stranger zone, the person starts noticing there was a shift because they can't pull off the false self for a long time. So, and as you're getting closer, the person starts noticing, who is this person? What just happened? It just catches them off guard. It's like, yesterday this was a nice person. Today this is a very, very mean person. What happened? So while the empath is trying to figure out what happened, the narcissist is nice and cold. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing. The dark zone, there might be name calling, is escalating. Silent treatment, triangulation. The narcissist might, let's say they are married and it's a female and they're talking about a female coworker, and they might make this comment. What's a passive aggressive comment? She really looked nice today, and they're talking about a particular coworker, and they keep doing that about this particular coworker to their partner. So that's one way triangulation takes place, but they'll talk about another person and bring it into the relationship. Manipulation, lots of control, especially financially, and I talked about the nice mean cycle. The preventative period, that's where the narcissist tries to get back with the person. Let's say the person says that's it, because usually if someone's in a romantic relationship with a narcissist, the cure is to leave them. That's about it. That's the cure. If you want intimacy, if you want connection, I usually tell them, just know that this is the reality. This is this person. You're not going to get intimacy. You're not going to get empathy. You're not going to get, you're hitting yourself the door. Turn in your gripe card. I'll say, turn in your gripe card and just accept that this is the way it is, or leave. That's it. That's the options. And then the discard, when the narcissists have tried their seduction, let's say the person leaves and they're trying to get them back. We call that, and some of you may have heard of love bombing, hoovering, like the vacuum cleaner. Am I pronouncing it right? Hoovering? They hoover and they put on the seduction really, 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 really strong. That's what that is. And if it doesn't work, they go for the discard, which they leave and see if they can find another victim. Hoovering, love bombing, manipulating, gaslighting. There's a movie called Gaslighting. I'm sure most of you probably heard of gaslighting. It's where they deny, they discount your reality. They tell you you didn't see what you thought you see. What you knew you saw, what you knew happened didn't happen. Crazy making, I know in the 12-step community they call it crazy making, gaslighting. That movie, there was a husband was trying to get his wife, it was old, like I think the 20s or 30s, I think it was a black and white movie. He was trying to get his wife admitted into an insane asylum. And so he would have the lights flash on and off, and she's like, "Do those lights flash? Do this?" And he's like, "No, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know." Gaslight, that's kind of where it came from. And today it's when someone says something happened and someone says, "You did this or you said this," and they're like, "You're just so sensitive," that kind of thing. Like they don't have any idea what you're talking about, and that couldn't possibly have happened. Triangulating, blaming, emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is when there is an indicator that if you don't straighten up, if you don't do what I ask you to do, if you don't back off, if you don't do whatever, then I'm going to pull back my love. I'm going to pull back my emotions. I'm going to abandon you. I'm not going to be there. It can be directly said or implied. Or it can be through if it's a lesser, it could be through crying as well, emotional blackmail. Threatening and repetitive apology. That would be the lesser or the moderate, but the master's not going to apologize.
I don't see word salad on there.
Tell us about what word salad.
Well, I understood word salad is they'll keep changing the terms, the words, what you said. It's kind of like what you said. She didn't see the gas, or you would say that it changes.
You're very good
at that. The post changes, the words change, the meaning changes.
Yeah.
So I'm understanding word salad.
It's crazy making.
Okay.
It's very crazy making. This is not how it was said. This is not how it was remembered. And it's a fact. They are recalling the fact, period. There is no, well, this could possibly have happened. No, it's a fact. It doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. The truth doesn't matter. So sometimes we're hitting our head up against the wall trying to get this person to understand. Maybe if I say it like this, maybe if I say it like that, maybe if I should phrase it like this, they'll get it. No. There's a one-up thing. I know the book, The Verbally Abusive Relationship, talks about reality 1 and reality 2. Reality 1 is power over. All they care about is winning, period. I win, you lose. That's it. Reality 2 cares about relationships, relational, let's negotiate, let's see if we can figure this out. So the reality 2 person communicates with the reality 1 person as if they're in reality 2. And they're in a whole different reality. So you're trying to talk it out. Even as a therapist, we're trying to talk it out when the person only cares about winning. And that's it. When someone's trying to help them, if they could perceive it as a threat, if there's anything remotely critical in there, then it's win-lose. When they're hoovering, they might have what we call a divine epiphany. I can never say it. It's like, okay, now I can see, I'll get therapy. I can see I've been really rude to you. I can see that, my behavior's been inappropriate. I need help. I'll go to church. God's shown me the error of my ways. And it's all hoovering is what it is. we can be friends. I can't choose this person over here and this person over there. I just can't choose right now. I care about you. I love you. It's just give me some time. I made a mistake. This is killing me, or I'm suicidal. So it's the moderate to lesser that might do some of these, the master. Identify narc abuse. You have a handout. I believe on your handout it says empath versus highly sensitive person. You have a person that's sensitive and you have a person that's very empathetic. And if you have an empath, a person I would call it extreme empathy. They excuse everything. And so they end up being a very passive person. And people that are more aggressive or more direct or talk straight and things like that tend to walk over them, so to speak. They get used and things like that. So an empath, they're very, very nice. Very, 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 very nice. So needless to say, they may not be assertive. So you have a person that's sensitive and you have the empath. The difference is the person that's highly sensitive know that, like if they're in the room with someone and someone else is angry or upset or hurt, they know that that's that person's feelings and they may empathize with them. The empath feels like they're their feelings. They take it on as theirs. Like Brene Brown talks about, if there's a big hole, there's a big pit, and a person is down there. You go down there and you hang out with them and you support them, but you can crawl back out. Well, the empath can't crawl back out. So I was doing a group before, and I remember I was seeing this person individually and in group, and the group this particular time was talking about pain. One person said, my back's been hurting, my arm's been hurting, and this and that. And then suddenly the person was talking about hurting. And in the individual session, the person was going on and on about physical problems. And I'm like, no, you took this on from group. And I saw that pattern over and over again to notice, a person walks in the room and they absorb people's feelings. Some of you might be like, absorb people's feelings. And what happens is, if they were around somebody really angry, they leave and they will conjure up something in their mind that they're angry over. And when they weren't angry before, but they will actually take it on and have time calming down. A highly sensitive person might have some element of that, but they can calm back down and detach from it. The empath have a whole lot of trouble calming down. It may be weeks before they can get past the emotions. Optimistic, I'll talk about that. The narcissist abuse person is always optimistic. They're very, very positive regard no matter what. They have a very strong intuition. They don't trust it. So the work is to get them to trust that feeling. I can say, how do you feel? And a lot of times they can tap into their feelings, or that intuition, that voice, but there's nothing else there. They don't trust it. They don't trust their voice, their instincts. Sometimes they'll ask me a question and I'll say, what do you think? What does your gut say? And then they'll say it right off. There you go. There's your answer. They just don't trust their feelings, but they're very intuitive. They'll think they're not desirable. They'll think, they'll have this fantasy. This is the one. This is perfect. There's this true love out there. There's this knight in shining armor out there. This is it. And they get fixated. Just like the narcissist will get fixated on a goal, the empath will get fixated on the person, and they can do no wrong. That person can do no wrong. That's it. Holds out for golden days to reappear, so they'll hang in there and hang in there and hang in there and hang in there with that abuse, and because it's like, I know that person I met at the beginning is in there. I see it. I know they're in there. I know they're going to come surface again one day, even though it's 20 years later. Can they change? The most we could do with the narcissist, because the empath will believe surely they can change. They could just go to therapy. The most we could do is teach them how to mimic, what to say. They can say, I'm sorry, or they can say, I didn't mean it, and they don't have to feel it, they don't have to believe it or anything like that. We can teach them, like what you said earlier, behavioral. I always say we can teach them to not stop hurting people around them. Teach them to stop hurting people. That's the most we can get. Don't think that they're going to sit there and feel empathy. They're not. They're not going to feel it. It's not going to happen. But they can respect you and not yell and scream and throw things or things like that. They can close their mouth and just listen, even though they think you're wrong and you have no idea what you're talking about, no matter what facts you have. They can still close their mouth and listen. That's what we teach them in therapy. Gray rock is the #1 strategy that I usually recommend that's out there for dealing with a narcissist. A gray rock means that we're going to kind of be flat. The goal is to not give them fuel. So what that means is do not give them any emotional reaction. Not good, not bad. Not happy, not sad. Not angry, give them flat. They hate boredom. They've got to have things stirred up. They've got to have their adrenaline going. That's what gives them power and gives them that fuel. So the goal is to remain flat. So when I'm working with a narcissist abuse survival, we try to come up with strategies for if they're going to interact with the narcissist still. Sometimes there's children and they've gone through divorce, but there's children. If they're going to, we teach them strategies on how to interact with that person and not give them fuel. Comments are made, there's these little comments, these hooks thrown out there, these texts, does this warrant a response or does this not warrant a response? So they have to get usually what I call adult supervision. They call a friend, they call somebody and say, this is what this person said, because they don't trust their own intuitions, and also they're so optimistic, they'll go back into that cycle. So they have to get support and direction from someone else for a while, because that part of the survival didn't get developed either. That rational part, that part that is able to put things in perspective, that part is weak in the abused person. Can a narcissist become an empath? Sometimes I've heard people say that, and the answer is no. They're not going to get empathy. They're not going to develop that. That's a deficiency that took place in their brain. Yeah. They can feel, this is according to HG Tudor, they can feel anger, they can feel envy, they can feel jealousy, they can feel shame but will never show it, and that's about it. He names about 5 emotions. But one of the things he mentions is, no, they're not going to feel love, no, they're not going to feel happiness. If they're at a comedy show, they're not laughing because of what that comedian just said. They're not the center of attraction. It's this person on the stage. But they can mimic the people around them. They know you're supposed to laugh. So
can an empath become a narcissist? I was thinking that no, but would they maybe mimic some of the traits?
Sometimes empaths, when they start learning about this, they'll say, well, this kind of sounds like me. Yeah, but there's so much, they absorb so much of what other people say or do, they absorb it. But no, they don't. They've just been around it so much. They have way too many emotions and empathy to become a narcissist. Now, when they're trying to speak up and become more assertive and come into having their own self, they might swing over to the opposite extreme because they're just trying to figure out how to do it, but they'll pull back because they've got feelings and they care about other people, so they'll pull back into moderation. Anything else? Any emotional outburst or anything like that? Especially if you're on the phone with them. But yeah, you can sense things, and it's a gift. It's a gift. But when the person's being abused, it can be abused. But it's actually a really good gift, especially for a therapist. It's a really good gift.
The other
Powerful.
thing I wanted to ask you too, because I've seen evidence of this with the narcissist, is this one that would not get medical attention, had some medical issues, and to the point, and I've seen some of this written up too, is that they would have a medical condition that could even threaten their life. And they go to the hospital and all of a sudden everybody comes around, they get all this attention.
Yeah, they're very good at that. And
Almost dying.
Yeah, there's medical, there could be a medical narcissist, there could be a medical empath, there could be, the medical empath is what I mentioned earlier, when people hurt, they hurt, when people, there's cerebral narcissists, I didn't touch on that, that's the mind, they're really good, they're very, very intellectual, and they will make you think you're crazy in a heartbeat. Cerebral, they're very, very smart.
I have 2 questions. If somebody is in a relationship with a narcissist and it's time to leave, what would you recommend as the safest way? And then if you have to co-parent with a narcissist, what would you recommend is the best way for the sake of the kids as well
Yeah.
as the adults?
When it's time to leave, it depends. It's individual. It depends on the person. Sometimes a person is fearful because it's physical abuse. So it's really important to get guidance, like from a therapist, from a professional, to help them with leaving a relationship where there's a lot of fear around it. They need to plan it out because there is a certain strategy for dealing with a narcissist in court. So they need to really plan that out. Know that the attorney, because the narcissist need to get everybody, the judge, attorney, everybody on their side too. So they need to be really good at planning it out, maybe with the therapist that is familiar with narcissism, because the narcissist will get them in court. Gray rock is what we use for interacting with that person if you're going to have to interact with them for the rest of, for a long time. Even though you've ended it, gray rock is you just don't give them fuel. That's the most we could do. We gotta know how to detach from things happening with the kids when they're with them versus things being different when you're with kids or in the middle, like any kids between a breakup. So, but the fuel is the thing that can at least keep you sane. Not giving that fuel.